Important notice: the following content may be triggering. Viewer discretion is advised. All discussions are based on personal opinions and experiences. If you or someone you know needs help, please reach out to a local support organization. Important notice: the following content may be triggering.
Well, welcome everyone to another episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors Uncensored. It's the podcast where we share truths and talk about important topics of the day as related to abuse and break the silence and find healing. I'm your host, Tara. In today's episode, we're weaving together three powerful stories and perspectives, each very unique, yet all connected by one unshakable thread: the journey from trauma to triumph. So, whether we're exploring the quiet beginnings of control, the generational echoes of abuse, or the systemic failures survivors face every day, this episode reminds us that domestic violence doesn't have just one face or one path, but together we can share a light on every step of our journey. But before we dive in, I have to promote some of our affiliates, of course. So today's affiliate is Truth Finder. I want to take a moment to talk to you about something really powerful in your journey towards safety and healing, and it's called Truth Finder. It's a simple tool that helps you uncover public records and background information about people you may encounter in your life. Whether you're reconnecting with someone from your past or just want to ensure that people around you are trustworthy, Truth Finder provides you with that information you need to make informed decisions. I have used it. It's a powerful tool. It's wonderful. So here on Through the Eyes of Survivors, we're all about creating safe spaces and giving survivors the tools they need to reclaim their power. And that's why we're excited to share Truth Finder with you. So it helps you take control of your own security and your own peace of mind. So check out the links. Try out Truth Finder through our link below. And by you doing that, you help support this broadcast. Also, another affiliate, of course, is Opus Clips. Opus Clips is an AI driven platform that helps us turn powerful podcast moments like we have now into shorts. They're very short, impactful type of clips. Um, and we use them all the time. I love Opus Clips. So, again, if you need this kind of tool, use our link provided and help support the broadcast. So let's get into our three topics today. I'm going to introduce, of course, my right hand gal, Amanda. She's here with us on Uncensored. She's the director of operations here at BTSADV, and also Kerry, who is a volunteer here at BTSADV. We're going to be talking about some really great topics. So, thank you, ladies, for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you
Absolutely.
for having me.
So, this first segment we're going to be talking about was in the news. It's really the cost of ignoring red flags, right? A father who kills his two children and murders unaliving himself just months after the children's grandparents died. So, Amanda, you want to give us a little more background on that story?
Yeah, so basically, um, right now they were still trying to confirm at some point of the daughter, but they believe it was the 20-year-old daughter that was deceased, and they were able to confirm the son and the father. What happened is that there was a family that called the sheriff department with some concerns and wanted them to do kind of a welfare check, and this is where they discovered this scene. There were some things in the past that really didn't add up right with this story. The mother supposedly committed suicide a couple years prior, and then the mother's parents also died from a murder suicide prior to this event. So these children grew up in a very kind of a generational, what seems cycle that was not being broken. And that was really, really, really sad about this case for sure. Because not only was this an instantly, it seemed like again it was the mother and then the grandparents and now the father with the children. So
Yeah, that's kind of a that's definitely like a generational curse for sure with this poor family. It seems to be that's even more than a cycle in my opinion. That's wow, something else. So, let's talk about that a little bit, like the impact of intergenerational trauma, right? If it's untreated, what kind of issues that causes, right, within a family. So, Carrie, did you want to speak on that some?
Sure. Definitely looking at this case, it definitely looks like this family was experiencing some form of trauma. If there was some violence going on through the generations, and maybe they didn't know how to reach out for help or assistance, or it wasn't available. Um, so they continued to stay in these cycles. And they may not have understood the mental health issues they were facing, and that we did need help in that aspect.
Yes, absolutely. Because the mental health aspects of what you see in trauma, right, Amanda, can be very telling if you don't get that kind of help, correct?
oh yeah, it spreads like a wildfire, and again that's why they call it the generational curse because unfortunately we push it off to everybody else. It's not an isolated incident as everybody thinks it is. It's not.
No, absolutely. And everyone watching, please feel free to put your thoughts into the comments. We'll read your comments as we're going. Um, we love to have you engage with us on the different topics here. Um, so definitely, I encourage you to join into the conversation for sure. Um, so, this kind of thing often, like cycle of violence and cycle of grief, it escalates a lot when it's ignored. I have noticed that through my family. There's like 100 years of generational trauma, right? And um, the system may deal with the effects that are criminal, but how do we deal with the effects that come from once the criminal cases are done, and families are having to settle into trying to live life after such? I think that's where the system fails people as far as their mental health, and that's probably where the system failed this family for sure. Uh,
I
so
agree.
yeah,
I
yeah,
agree.
it really
I
brings.
believe that there
Go
was a
ahead.
lot.
Go ahead, Amanda.
Oh no, I was just saying there. I think that there has been a lot of attempts. They said from CPS and family courts, and they were just failed. These poor children were just failed.
Hmm. Right. Well, and you know, the impact on our children when they see that type of violence, let alone death, right? Um, it affects them in ways that we can't even fathom sometimes. I know my children were very affected in ways, and you think you don't have to talk about it, uh, but you learn later on. Yeah, you definitely need to talk about it because as for me, I'll speak for myself. I was very lulled into, the children endured this with me. Why do we have to talk about it? We're moving on, right? And sometimes that can be very detrimental within families. So, I know, Carrie, you have children, and Amanda has children and stuff. And as survivors, how integral was the role of being able to converse with your children?
For me, it's very important
Huge.
because I want them to be aware and to know, to understand why things happen, why we are where we are, and to understand why I am who I am. Um, I think that makes a huge difference in understanding, for kids to understand their parents and why their parents do what they do. What's led them down this path can make a huge difference in your relationships with your kids. It has made a huge difference for me in my relationship with my father, who had mental health issues and had attempted suicide. And when I found out his past story and understood, it changed our whole relationship. So, it's important with mental health or with domestic violence and, communicating and helping your kids understand.
No, I absolutely agree.
I agree.
Absolutely. And so we're having some technical difficulties again, Amanda. Is that what you were telling me here?
Yeah. Yes. Unfortunately, guys, I can see on our Facebook that we have some comments and we have like 29 viewers, but we're not seeing it on our end on EV Max.
Let me see if I can pull that up. Why don't you go ahead and talk about with your children and stuff, Amanda, and let me see if I can pull up some of their comments off my phone so we can engage with the audience. So, Amanda,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So I agree with Carrie that the community. Go. I'm sorry, Tara. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I think we got a little lag. You're good. Go ahead.
Sorry. So basically, as Carrie said, it was huge for me to have this open communication with my children and the appropriacy of their ages as the timeline went on. When I first left, they were very young, so I had to pick verbiage that they could only understand. And then when they got older, I did have more conversations with them that they were able to handle at that time. But it's huge. It's so big for them because you are opening up that door for them to break that generation by you speak, and you're doing it yourself by speaking. Because I even said, some comments in here that we were taught to sweep it under the rug on Facebook. I
Oh,
saw someone's,
yes.
and I did. I grew up in a family that who had the generation who said, just don't talk about it. We'll deal with it internally,
Mhm.
and then act like never happened. And that's something that carries with you until you're an adult and you don't have the proper tools as a parent to handle situations if we're not taught when we're younger.
No, I completely agree. Completely agree. So let's see what other comments we got in here. Leslie, I understand some of this personally with violence of my father and only understood his narcissistic personality once I became a counselor myself. Well, I'm glad you have some kind of understanding definitely about that. It's it's hard when it's your parents who are definitely in that role and not just, so it's not just your partners that we deal with that in. So, absolutely. And Jim says, unfortunately, what we see and experience as children in our own lives stays with us throughout adulthood. I agree with that. This is not to make excuses for bad actions, but can give more understanding to tragic outcomes. Yes, I agree. So, did you see any other comments there, Amanda, that you wanted to comment on? Oh, we just got a whole lot in from
Let me
Doll
see.
Face here.
I
Yeah.
know. I'm just,
Thank you for
we
joining,
have
Doll Face.
Crystal. Yeah, absolutely. My daughter of a man who was diagnosed with NPD is talking. My ACE score is 10, talking about the best thing for children survivors of domestic violence. And we also have another one. This system has completely failed me and still is. I'm still in shock, and the police won't do anything. And I'm sorry for that, Crystal. That
Crystal,
is
I am so sorry.
disheartening
We have
when you are looking
experienced
for the
that.
property authorities to help you, and you don't. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So, like, Crystal, we don't have any kind of emergency services to help you, but we do have a support line that will get put in here as soon as we can. If you need someone to talk to or just some resources, please, call our support line. We're there to be with you and stand by you for sure. So, um, yeah. So wrapping up just kind of this segment here a little bit. Um, before we get on to the next one, some of the key things we need to remember is, the impact of generational trauma, definitely, and how it affects us, um, how we're at risk, and how our communities can support us better when we hit that kind of a crisis because the systems does fail us. And that's what we're going to talk about in our next segment is um, a case where in particular the system did fail the key did fail in some certain manners. So yeah, definitely stay with us. We're gonna briefly um, share with you an video of our Run for Her event that is coming up. So let me give you just a little background on our Run for Her event. Run for Her. The registration is open now. You can go to our Facebook page, Run for Her, find the registration. It will be in the links here as well. Join our Facebook group over there. Um, Run for Her is definitely officially open. We will start July 1st and run all through the month of July. It's a virtual challenge that brings survivors and supporters and advocates across the nation as we run our walk. We do it for those who have lost their lives, like my daughter. We do it for ourselves as survivors to raise awareness, and we do it for those who are still out there in abusive relationships. So whether you're running solo, you can sign up there. You can run with a team, get a team together when you register if you would like. Every mile matters. So definitely go join the team. um, get your Run for Her gear before you start running. So order that now through the links as well. And we do have a really great access to our exclusive starter package there that gives you a discount for the Run for Her. I think it's like a shirt and a water bottle and some other stuff. And then also, when you register, Fight Camp has officially given us some free memberships to hand out to everybody. So when you register, once you register, you'll get an email that tells you how to get free Fight Camp gear. I believe it's the wraps and the monitors, correct, Amanda? And then a free 45-day
Yes.
membership to try it and see how you like it. And so definitely check that out on our Run for Her Challenge website, which is www.runforherchallenge.com. Check out those links. And Amanda, play a clip for us, please.
She left with nothing but a backpack, her child, and a deep desire to rewrite her story. Starting over isn't easy, but for survivors of domestic violence going back to school, it's everything. It's healing. It's freedom. It's power, but most of all, it's hope. That's why we created the Run for Her Scholarship Program, to help survivors rise and to honor the women and children who never got that chance. Each step you take this July helps fund education for survivors, turning pain into purpose, and every dollar raised carries the name of someone we've lost. Her name won't be forgotten. Her life will lift another woman toward her future. Lace up, fundraise, change a life, run for her so she can run toward tomorrow. The Run for Her Challenge, scholarships, survivors, stories that live on. She left with nothing but a backpack, her child, and a deep desire.
And we're back. So thank you for joining us and here on Uncensored. So our next segment, we are going to be talking about when families fall through the cracks. And again, just like in the last segment, it can be very devastating. But what happens when those in power are the ones causing the harm? So let's definitely discuss about this next segment. A judge accused of abuse, but he's still allowed to serve. So, Doug Brimhall, a judge elected, charged with choking his daughter, he took a plea deal for harassment, yet still is on the bench. So, Kerry, do you mind talking to us a little bit more about in detail?
Sure. Yeah, this is in my area, my home ground, so I'm pretty familiar with this case. Mr. Brimhall was charged with felony aggravated assault on a family member and domestic battery. Um, he ended up pleading it down to harassment. Um, this was after his election, but before he took the bench. Um, Before he took the bench, there were several, uh, influential people in the judicial system or domestic violence advocacy who reached out to the state judicial committee and other resources asking for him to not be allowed to take the bench.
Right.
However, he still was allowed to take the bench. Um, the prosecutor is asking for him to not be allowed to hear any of her cases.
Right.
And he is refusing to recuse himself. And at this point, he's he's requesting for his name to be removed, or has filed a suit to have his name removed from the Arkansas State child maltreatment list. Yeah, and this one incident that happened was pretty egregious. He had, broken the windshield on his wife's car, had had his hands on his daughter's neck where she couldn't breathe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was, among other things. So, it just, what does that do for survivors or for victims? What does that say about um, reaching out for help? What's the system going to do?
Right. Because if you get before this judge in a court, how are you going to be sure that you are getting fair and equal treatment under the law?
Yes. Yeah. How is he going to be objective in a case like that? And when he's already gotten away without any accountability, what does that mean for other perpetrators? And how are our victims going to feel that they're going to be protected? It just says so much, I think, about how why victims are report so often don't report because of that fear. And I think seeing this happen, and even when so many were reaching out asking for it to not be allowed, and it still did, that creates even more fear
Yes,
for victims to report.
absolutely.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, and Amanda, I mean, what I mean, this is just, I agree with Audrey. It says, she said, this is wrong on so many levels. Yes, it is. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And let's see, she says something else here too. This would be a perfect opportunity to set a standard and stand with survivors rather than letting yet another person in power get away with injustice. I agree. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Amanda, I know you didn't have to really deal too much with the court system, correct?
No, I was very fortunate in that aspect. My abuser was arrested on charges that he did on himself, so he kind of sunk his own boat to the point where he cannot ever have custody of our children.
Right.
So I have been very lucky on that aspect.
Yeah. Um, I know that we dealt with a little bit of political corruption in our case with it came out that the assistant DA in charge of my daughter's course, case, um, I started getting tons of emails of survivors, domestic violence survivors who were going before him in court, and he was cherry picking who got good deals out of who would date him. And we had to deal with that as a family. But fortunately, the DA took it seriously and got him out of there. But he'd been doing that for 20 some odd years in the background. So the levels of corruption that go on in the courts, people have got to understand that survivors come from this. We know the statistics. So if 1 in 3 women are dealing with abuse, that means that when you look around, you've got the possibility of 1 in 3, 1 in 4 of the men out there who are perpetrating. So that means your judges, your lawyers, your doctors. It means people that we count on every day in society. So yeah, it the judicial system though is really geared to enable that. I have seen for sure. So what so Carrie, what is happening within your community? Anything? I said you said the DA was trying to not have the cases taken before this judge, correct?
Correct. And she's not backing down. She's trying her best to, well, she's asking him to recuse himself, and he's refusing. But she is holding her ground and still attempting to prevent him from hearing any cases with her office. Um, but I think once he made it to the bench, really all of the others, like there were other officers and people with the local family crisis center who were reaching out trying to prevent it. But once it happened, you just kind of felt like everyone just kind of felt like their hands were tied. What can we do from here? Um, they let him on the bench. They're not going to take him off now. So it's just kind of a kind of like we don't have really anywhere to go from here. And
No recourse. Yeah.
yes,
Mm-mm-mm.
Mhm.
No, I think this is definitely one like do you mind saying where that is?
it's in Northeast Arkansas. He's a circuit judge um, covering several counties.
Mhm. Yeah, I think this is the time for like when survivors like us and groups like us can definitely raise a voice. It may be a good thing to do because this kind of thing just can't continue to go on. There has to be limits set and inquiries done, and um, the ultimate thing here is to have him removed. But if not, the minimal thing is to just get him to be recused from those kinds of cases.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, was there any comments over there, Amanda, in Facebook?
So I've been keeping up, and as of right now, we do have some more. Um, we have Jim over here saying, "Do not neglect reaching out to authorities for help. However, you must protect yourself and be aware that not all authorities are decent or moral. Protect yourself, your family above all, and know your surroundings and be aware of all the risks."
Yes, absolutely. My goodness. And Shannon, thank you for your comment. She was talking about that her abuser broke her back years ago and she still stayed. She suffers with back pain every day. So many of us suffer still physically from the abuse we endured years and years later. You're not alone in that, and I'm sorry you endured that. Um, Definitely. MJ says reach out to your local state representatives. Well, that's a good place to start. Yeah, that's a good place to start. Do you know if they have Carrie in that area? I'm sure that DA is really hot and on it.
Yeah.
I would be.
Well, I know that they had reached out to the judicial, what is it, the Judicial Discipline and Disability Committee,
Yes.
which didn't didn't take any actions. Um, so from there, I don't know if what could be done by with the state representatives or from that.
Yeah, they do more than you think. You give them enough of a public outcry, and they will look into it.
Mhm.
Um, Now, whether or not they can do anything will be another matter, but I found the squeaky wheel was the one that gets the oil, that's for sure. So I never expected, so you guys know, I never expected that in our case that the assistant DA anything would ever come of it. Uh, but it did, and he was removed. So and it was just gathering up the evidence and presenting it and getting it to the right person. So um, sometimes that always doesn't have a good outcome, but sometimes just one person can make that difference. So absolutely. So in wrapping up, is there anything further that you guys want to say on this one?
Um, just, for victims, a lot
No.
of, oh, did you say?
Amanda's got a little bit of a delay.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Um, the judicial system sometimes can be tough, for victims or survivors. So just if you're in that situation, just be sure that you find the right support, people who understand what you're dealing with, and that you find the right attorney who understands
Yeah.
domestic violence and abuse, so that you have someone on your side who can know how to protect you through it.
Yes, absolutely. And our support line does help you find resources like that. We can direct you into those resources to try to help you find somebody in your local area who can help you as well. Correct, Amanda?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. So, we're going to take another short break real quick and just show you that we do have a store. So, definitely on our website, check out our store. There's some great merchandise on there that you can purchase that helps support survivors and our programs. So, Amanda's going to play a short clip on that, and then we're going to come back to our third segment that is going to talk about when communities say no to survivors. So, stay tuned with us.
We hope you're enjoying this episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors. We wanted to pause for a moment and let you know that Through the Eyes of Survivors has a shop now open. And this is a great way for you to not only help survivors of domestic violence, but also let everyone know that you will not be silent about this important cause. From t-shirts to bags to coffee mugs, we have so much to choose from. To grab your swag, head to our store at breakthesilencedv.org. That's store.breakthesilencedv.org. We can't say enough about how much we appreciate all that the community does to help support us and this organization. So we hope you've enjoyed this episode and continue to subscribe to future episodes. Thank you.
And we're back. So, for our final segment, all of these kind of tied together. So, we're going from the court, what happens, with community and injustice there, to if the justice, system enables abusers, what about the community's role, right? So, next, we're going to explore a story where a community rejected a safe housing project for survivors. So, yeah, it's a domestic violence survivor housing project in New Miami, Ohio. And it was blocked by local resistance, denying survivors a needed safe place. So, Amanda, you want to tell us more about that?
Yes. So the YMCA wanted to build 45 supportive housing units in the village of Miami for families to escape domestic violence. Um, and originally, they needed about $14 million to build this complex. They were working with different places, and if within Ohio that could help fund them. And they gave different excuses, like the score was too low for OSHA's process. But one of the reasons was also the community was kind of pushing back. They were saying that they didn't want crime coming into their school districts, and kind of saying that if they bring these survivors in, that they're bringing problems inside the community.
Oh,
And
wow.
personally, I've had this happen to me as a survivor. So this did really resonate with me strongly, because this is such a blessing that could give someone to be able to be safe, and their children to be safe and start their life, and they're treating them like they're criminals that are going to come into their neighborhood and disrupt things, when all these people want to do is be safe. And it just seems like a lot of categories that are being placed on these survivors in this situation, and it doesn't seem very fair.
Oh, no. That's for sure. It doesn't seem very fair. So, I mean, what's the consequences? I mean, let's talk about that. The consequences of community rejecting survivors housing. Like, Carrie, what's the consequences for that?
Well, these survivors are not given a place to go to be safe, to escape the abuse that they've dealt with, to have a place to create a new life, um, and continue on. Why should they not have that opportunity?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're promoting a myth that definitely thought was gone a long time ago. It surprises me when some of these come up still, that stigma of, well, it's all criminal acts, so you're inviting crime into our communities. Well, I hate to tell you, the crime's already in your communities. It's happening behind the closed doors in your communities, in your suburban residential areas. It's happening already. The crime is already there. I'm just saying. It is already there and thriving. So, what you're rejecting is a safe community for those who are crime victims. You are not stopping or preventing crime itself or welcoming crime in. So, I just want to say that straight out. Miss Amanda, what's your point of view on that?
I personally went through something where I was denied an apartment when I left my ex, and my parents were willing to front the money for a year. They were going to pay it up front, was telling this woman, hey, we'll give you money for years rent for her and her children to live here. And she said, I do not want that drama coming to my apartment complex. Absolutely no. And I was mortified. And I said, ma'am, I'm just looking to be safe. I'm not a problematic person. Um, he will not know my address. And she was refusing, which I found out later was very illegal. But in the same sense, she felt that she had that right at that time to say that. Um, I'm going to piggyback on what Tara said. If you don't think that you already have children in your school that are in families of domestic violence, and it's going to be the ones that you don't even think that is, it's not going to be the children that you think, look, in a lower income family, there is children very much in your community, and domestic violence is a wildfire, and it is a community crisis, and you're not addressing it when you do things like this. You are just basically making it worse in your community.
Mhm.
Shelters will get overfilled, and people will start living in their cars. Children will not have the safety that they deserve.
Yeah, exactly. So what we definitely need to do is, advocates. There needs to be an influx in communities like this of education. These communities definitely need more education and advocacy to help change this public perception. Correct? What are your thoughts on it, Kerry?
For sure. The public needs to be made more aware of what is abuse and what survivors need, and that survivors aren't trouble causers, or they're not bringing it on themselves, that they need the assistance of someone in the community. Um, and that will be helpful to the community as a whole, helping the people who are trapped in those situations rather than pushing them away and stigmatizing them.
No, I absolutely agree. And Audrey said it's heartbreaking, and she also says they should be rallying together to help those in their community. I
Yes.
definitely agree. Amanda, did we have any more comments over on Facebook?
I am just looking right now, and we did get some in. Let me see here. It's a classic, not in my bad yard thinking. So sad. And I agree. I agree. A lot of people in communities will think if this is not affecting me and my immediate family, then this does not affect me at all. And I think we've all been there in some kind of mind frame, but I'm going to promise you it's not true. It's not true. It will find its way in some point in your life.
Oh yeah. Oh
It's not
yeah.
true.
Yeah. Someone you know has been affected by it. That is for sure. And this is the thing I always like to tell people, because the government gives really good statistics. And of course, I know these statistics because my family is a part of that statistic, unfortunately. But 1 in 3 women die in this country. I mean, 3 women a day. I'm sorry, I'm saying it wrong. 3 women a day die in this country to domestic violence. Okay, but the statistic they don't tell you is that's only 1/3 of the people who die daily. So there are 6 people who die as bystanders from a domestic violence incident. So double the amount of people lose their lives at the hands of what is happening in private behind the scenes stores. And it can be other family members, it can be a hairdresser, it can be the grocery store clerk, it could be the restaurant waiter, like what happened with Nicole Simpson, who, as a bystander. So this is happening in your backyards, and supplying those safe places for people to go is critical. It's critical. So, um, yeah, Amanda, you were talking about that it was definitely something that you experienced as well, but it was just a rent. What would you say to those who, like, if they do
Mhm.
own something where they're renting or opening their home, because as far as helping someone in that manner?
So I definitely say I know that all different domestic violence cases come in different situations and people are different, and some people come out of domestic violence relationships with different mental health illnesses, sobriety illnesses, not of their own but things that they've went through, and I understand that certain places don't want to have that, but really look into that person, really look into the situation, give grace, because you could be saving someone's life. You can definitely tell when a mother's standing there with her 3 children, and she is not using, she is not under the influence. You can tell that she is definitely, especially when they are willing to pay. They're willing to pay you a whole year and they're just trying to be safe. If you have concerns, then find ways through your rental properties or your process to weed out certain things. Work with organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Educate yourself so that you can make smart decisions, because I'm not telling everybody to open your home to someone that's going through domestic violence. We all don't have that capability. But if you are a renter or you have an organization, study up to know.
Right. And just know when you're in communities, when you're denying these kinds of services, you're also denying the education that comes along with that community. When you open up that type of shelter and stuff, the services are not going to be the same in those communities as you will get if you have a shelter. The services are more detailed, they're more personal, they're able to really help people in those communities. So I would say just keep that in mind. Um, Carrie, do you have anything else on this topic that you wanted to include on that?
Um, just yeah, I want to say again that it's the community stigma toward domestic violence and mental illness can make the situation worse for those struggling. So, if communities would be more accepting and more willing to help, it could make a huge difference.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. Oh, Amanda, did you want to touch on it? Are there any more comments? I see some more coming in.
Let's see here. So I see one from Jim. It says, "It breaks my heart to know that there's communities that live in fear to the point that they would reject families that need help so badly. These communities are full of cowardly people. It's understandable to have concerns that somebody abuser would attack again, but to reject suffering families is unconceivable, I'm sorry, where Americans should be able to do better than that. It's our duty to protect those and help those who suffer. If we don't do these things, how can we expect to help when we really need it?"
Amen. Amen. By the way, that's my sweet husband who just threw in his 2 cents there. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I think that's great. So, anything else, ladies, before we kind of wrap up this segment?
No?
All right. Well, I want to tell everybody about some events that we have coming up here at Break the Silence. So, we do have a movie night this Friday, movie with a mission, right? So, if you'd seen one of our podcasts a couple of weeks ago, if you haven't seen it, go check it out over Scars Unseen. Um, this Friday, June 6th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us from the comfort of your own home and watch a virtual screening of Scars Unseen, which is a powerful domestic violence documentary by She TV Media. It's very eye opening. The film sheds a light on the hidden wounds of abuse and the strength it takes to break free. And by purchasing your ticket, you're not only experiencing a movie film, you're giving back to BTSADV and supporting our mission and helping to break the silence. So the links will be populated into the comments and into the podcast descriptions. Please go get your ticket now. And it is a great documentary. Plus, we are starting a fundraiser with Little Caesars Pizza. So from June 6th, you can support BTS ADV by purchasing pizza kits for just $6 delivered right to your front door from Little Caesars. They have delicious cookie dough that you can get also and order. They have gluten-free options. Just share that link with your friends and family. Do a dinner and movie night, maybe Friday night. The links will be in there for that. So I know my grandkids, they have some pizza kits where they can put together the pizzas on their own that you can have delivered right to the door, and they are fresh. They pack those. I personal testimony. They pack those. I live in Texas. Came in 120-degree heat one summer when we did this, and it was in dry ice, and it was still frozen and cold and good condition and been out there like half a day. So definitely, and my grandkids loved putting those together, making their own personal pizzas. Or you can just order from your local Little Caesars, and like I said, the links will be up. Then you use the code and you help support us with it. And also, any of our friends in Colorado, right now, enjoy dinner and give back at the Lazy Dog Restaurant now through June 7th. Lazy Dog restaurants all through the state of Colorado are fundraising for us. The last I heard, we're up over $900. Am I correct, Amanda, from Lazy Dog so far? And she'll tell me if I'm wrong. But you can dine in or take out an order. A portion of
You're
the
good.
goes back to help impact families who've been impacted by domestic violence. And of course, definitely check out the Run for Her, right? Register for that. So thank you for joining us on this deeply moving episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors. As we heard today, the road to healing is definitely never linear, and the courage it takes to speak out and confront the past and rebuild is nothing short of extraordinary. So, if these stories stirred something in you, whether pain or hope or a call to action, you're not alone. We're here, and so is the community ready to listen and support you and stand with you as survivors. And until next time, keep believing in the power of your voice. Let her rip, because Through the Eyes of Survivors can change the world. Thank you for joining us.